Welcome back to the podcast. This is season 3, episode 10. This could well be the last podcast. We'll get to that very shortly. But this week's episode is sponsored by MPB. If you're looking to sell or trade equipment, it's so easy. You can complete a free instant quote, arrange a free courier to collect from your door at the date and time to suit you. MPB then inspects the gear and confirms your quote. So in this week's episode, it's all about high resolution cameras. Resolution is probably one of the most misunderstood topics in photography and videography. I'm not going to cover the video side. I'm going to cover the still side. You're on the video side.
Okay.
Because I don't even know how many megapixels 4K is, but I bet you do.
It's 12. Some days I wonder why I'm single. Some days not so much.
So that's pretty much what we're looking at today. It's quite an in-depth conversation. If you're not into megapixels, resolution, and delivering big files for clients, I apologize. But back to why it's maybe our last podcast. So currently it is 8:30 p.m. on Wednesday. This goes live Tuesday. And we're pretty stacked. So much so that we're filming at night after work. And I was just about to get us some drinks. We had a bottle of champagne, which isn't appropriate today because I've had a pretty shocking day. A bottle of vodka, or this. A bottle of Coca-Cola with a rusted lid that expired over 2 years ago and was never meant for this country. So this is what we're going to be supping on.
What's the worst that could go wrong, really?
What's the worst that can happen? And I guess you'll never know. I mean, if this is coming out, we've probably survived. Or somebody's oddly thought, you know what? They need their legacy. Let the episode fly.
I think the odds are good that at least one of us will survive this.
Yeah, but it's going to be you, isn't it? It's not going to be me.
I will leave an empty chair in your honour.
Yeah.
If this is the case.
So we've got I was going to do a quick taste test before we dive into this. How bad is it? It tastes like Coca-Cola out of a glass bottle. It's not aged at all. No vintage, but there we go. We're on the Coca-Cola. So, Rob, in the last 4 days, what have you been up to since we last did one of these?
Oh, so I've finished the final colour grading on the Dead Bar movie.
Perfect.
The guys are literally landed in Amsterdam today to get ready for the premiere this week.
Nice. Yes, I saw those screenshots. They're the screenshots you sent.
They're the screenshots.
Look sick.
Yeah, I mean, importantly, they were really happy. So shout out to Conrad and Tommy on that. Have a great time, guys. I wish I was in Amsterdam with you. I will be honest.
Yeah, we did Amsterdam, didn't we?
We did.
Was it a good trip? I don't remember.
Yes, it was, actually.
Didn't we stay we stayed in a really rubbish hotel?
That's the one you paid for.
Yes. And then we stayed... All right. Trying to save some money.
No. Believe me, I was more than happy. When I go to Amsterdam, I wouldn't have had a hotel as fancy as the one you booked.
Oh, fair enough. But the second one we stayed in
was super fancy.
Super fancy, which the client put us up in for a few days. It was it was boss.
Yeah, and like an amazing dinner to round the trip off as well.
Oh, we did have a good dinner. And we had night out on the beers. And nothing bad happened from what I remember.
No, and there was no... Aside from you burning flashes like they were going out of fashion, which is standard for one of your away trips, nothing really went wrong.
No, it was pretty good, actually. Was it that trip where we didn't just go to Amsterdam, but we went to loads of different cities
there's
landed...
about 3 or 4 different locations.
Yeah, I thought so. Did we go to Paris as well on that trip?
No, it was just Amsterdam. Well, we got the Eurostar, so... I mean, technically...
We flew through, we went through Paris. So your film premiere is going live in Amsterdam without you.
Yeah, well, without me. Well, it's not my film premiere. I shot one of the sort of main scenes for it, and then did the colour grade for the entire film. So it's there's been numerous people done this, which kind of made the grade challenging because you had about 4 or 5 different cameras to kind of match up and make look similar.
Yes, yeah.
And you had everything from flying cameras. There was a drone that was not shot in log. There was some iPhone footage where they were clearly stealthing it around Birmingham because, I've been busted by the Birmingham Film Police.
Birmingham in the UK, I have never been stopped and asked for permits and insurance as many times. In London, rarely happens. Unless you're outside House of the Parliament, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Birmingham, down a canal path, and
Literally
the police
everywhere.
and everyone just descends on you.
Yeah, it's just like a huge thing.
It's so weird.
So there was clearly footage from phones where they were filming in places that they possibly didn't apply for a permit. I'm going to assume that they have, and that they chose to shoot it on a phone for the aesthetic,
Stylistic choice.
much like Danny Boyle with 28 years later.
Yes, yeah. Fair. I've not seen that yet.
It's just hit the cinemas.
Yes, I tried to watch 28 Weeks Later see if I'd like it.
That wasn't so good.
It was not good. Do I need to watch 28 Days Later?
Yes,
Is that worth watching?
Yeah, absolutely. Watch 28 Days Later. That's an absolute seminal classic.
I'll get on to that.
And that's the reason that I think there was such a gap between 28 Weeks Later and this movie now, is because
it flopped hard.
It didn't receive particularly well at the box office, I think it's fair to say.
Fair enough.
But this, I mean, what I've seen of it looks incredible. So, I definitely want to see this on the big screen.
Yeah. I think I'll have maybe we'll do a little trip. We've not been out for ages, have we?
No. I mean, you're a busy man with family and commitments.
I am a busy, but I think we should have a beers out soon.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you get a hall pass, mate, holler at your boy.
Well, I've always got a pass. I'm normally knackered by the time I can use my pass. I think that's the issue. And
I think it's also the fact that we seem to spend our free time at weekends working.
Yes, that doesn't help matters.
I mean, you just had my invoice for June. Look how much stuff we did in June.
Yeah, that was a lot of stuff, actually.
Yeah.
Is June a long month? They're all normal size, aren't they? It's not particularly long. It's not like
there's only 30 days in June. There's only 1 month shorter, and that's February.
Well, there we go. Yeah, it's been busy. It does seem to have been relentless recently, and it doesn't show any signs of letting up. We've just landed 2 more jobs,
which is great news.
But I really could do without them.
Yeah, but it's the whole bus syndrome. You're like nothing for 6 months, and all 3 come along at once.
Chaos. And we will be using high resolution cameras for them, but we'll get to that in a bit. I'll tell you what I watched recently, which was really good, that I hadn't seen in years. I watched Platoon.
Great film.
I forget how good Charlie Sheen was once upon a time.
Yeah, before, as I say, he made some bad lifestyle choices.
Yeah, before, yeah. And it's a proper star-studded cast as well. Everyone's in it. They're all in it.
And it was actually a really well-written film, really well shot.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was absolutely on point on the acting front. It's like, it was top draw all around, really.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was, yeah, I mean, who was I talking? This is a real tangent here, because I'm watching old films recently. Popeye, the film.
Oh. That's in the latest live-action remake.
No, the old one with Robin Williams in it.
Oh, God, yeah.
They were using film canisters to smuggle a certain... For those who don't know, a film canister is like the size of a pizza.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was just a random story I heard on a night out recently. It might not be true. No, don't sue me. But that's the tale. We watched... and the reason we're discussing films, by the way, if you're going, why are they chatting about films on a photography podcast? I would say that 90% of my inspiration for my stills, when coming from a visual source, which is not how many of mine come in actually inspiration-wise, is from films. I'd say most of my inspiration comes from either graphic design, drawings, or just things I see, but I get more inspiration from moving images than I do from still images.
Do you know, I think that works the same in reverse as well, because you're very much stills as a, in your DNA. I mean, obviously, almost every job now has moving pictures bolted on.
Yeah.
But obviously, the last 10 years of certainly of your career have been very much stills have got you to where you are today, like, I think. And I think it also works the other way around. It's like when people are looking to shoot movies, they look at interesting photos.
Oh, really?
And they say, bro, looks just like a movie.
Yeah.
And it's almost exactly the same thing in reverse. I think cinematographers are inspired by stills photographers, and I find stills photographers are inspired by cinematographers.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that makes good sense. I think it's really important to consume, but consume mindfully. Don't just doom scroll consume. I don't think that's ever a good thing.
No.
But there we go. So yeah, we've had a brutal few weeks of work between commercial jobs, studio access. We've been making a load of content on that, but as you can probably tell from the jump cuts at the moment, I had laryngitis and I've still not recovered 5 weeks later. So everything is taking longer to edit because I have to keep pausing to cough and then pick up where I left off. And sometimes I don't pick up at the right place.
Ironically, it's normally me that does the Bob Fleming on the podcast.
It completely wiped me out. I just did too much work a couple of months ago and just broke myself. I'm going to cough again now. So there's an interesting conversation going around. And it was all to do with high resolution cameras. And every time someone goes, here's a new high resolution camera, some clever clogs goes, you don't need 100 megapixels, you can do it with 8. Is it the same in the video world or not?
To be honest, resolution in the video world is almost never talked about, other than, in the words of Obi-Wan, other than from a certain point of view. Now, the world isn't ready for 8K. It's not. 4K hasn't been widely adopted.
Yeah.
So 8K, 12K, 17K, and so on doesn't really make any difference. Now, the vast majority of Oscars for cinematography and so on have been won with at least in the digital realm. We'll ignore film for the moment. Talk about in the digital realm by a 2.7K ARRI camera. So the minute anyone starts talking about resolution being the thing, everyone's just eyes roll and I'm like, ARRI only needed 2.7K, mate.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. Resolution was the least important part of that entire image, because apparently it would upscale really nicely to 4K. Because again, ARRI's like color science, the dynamic range, all the stuff that really matters in terms of crafting an image was just so good. And now, yes, ARRI have now moved into slightly higher resolution cameras, but they're still very much always been behind Red. And now you got Blackmagic just absolutely drop kicked a goal out of the stadium with the 17K Ursa, with a completely new style of sensor. It's just absolutely crazy. So resolution, from certain points of view, people are looking at more content creators than movies. I don't think for movies it really matters. They'll shoot everything in sort of 8K or the largest resolution available. But again, for the most part, I don't think you're going to find a cinema screen anything more than 8K. The vast majority are 4K.
Yeah.
So that is an important. What is important is then people that are going to use it on sort of billboards, on social. So basically, you can crop away at the image and create multiple use cases out of the same piece of footage. That's really where high resolution in the video world is relevant.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we do video wise. So we shoot 6K, upscale to 8K, and then crop. 6 to 8K works quite nicely. I find you don't see any weird artifacts.
Yeah.
But you just need the full, if you look at this shot, the straight on shot, I bet it's not on the straight on shot now. If I pause for a second, it will be. Good old AI. If you look at the straight on shot, it's 6K. And we can crop in, if we wanted to, just to me and have you out of the frame, or just to you and have me out of the frame. And anything in between, we could get a nice social media aspect ratio. We can get a square aspect ratio, all from that 6K.
Because you do not need anything more than 1920 or 1080p.
That's the max
in old money.
Yeah.
For anything social media related.
But even for billboards, where was it? We had something on a 4K digital billboard, and it had to be at 1080p to display it. I think the billboard itself interpolated it. Maybe.
Yeah, it's the same actually as that monitor. That's a 4K monitor. Now it's only got 1080 pixels, but what it means is it can handle a 4K input should you decide to stuff that into it, but it only displays it back at 1080.
So I think, and this is where the confusion comes. Now I have a really strong opinion on cropping, so we're going to get onto that in a minute. If you work commercially in video, you must have a high resolution camera of a minimum of 4K.
Yeah.
The more you can have, the better, because they will want the full frame, the skinny crop down the center for phones, the skinny crop portrait-wise as well. They'll want a square crop, and then they'll want some different crops inside it as well. Personally, I think, and this is coming from a documentary photography background, who shot film, any cropping on a photograph looks shit. However, that's how I pay my bills. So you want a crop, I'll give you a crop. But I think, when you start cropping photographs that you shot purposely with a certain lens, it doesn't look as good. It never looks as good, especially when you heavily crop. I'm not talking about cropping so heavily that you lose resolution. I'm just talking about cropping enough that you can see that you've got, say, 50mm perspective, but 100mm point of view. Because my brain and everyone else's brain is so attuned to seeing a 35mm looking like a 35mm lens.
And it also, the other thing as well, if you're using some interesting lenses, like, do you remember I went out and bought a whole bunch of like German and Russian, like post-war lenses to shoot my second film with? Now, all the really fun stuff happens right at the edges of these lenses. So when you start cropping in, it starts to look a bit less interesting.
Oh, exactly. I mean, like if you take this wide shot here, for example, if it crops in on me, when it crops in, I'm at the wrong point of the distortion plane for that wide angle lens for it to ever look right. So, I mean, whenever we shoot stuff, like personally, we don't crop maybe we crop like, I don't know, a millimeter off the edge as we level it up if it's somehow slightly, sometimes you can't get your camera perfectly straight because of this is really nerdy, between the clicks on the ball head, sometimes, although it should be level, because the floor and the table are both equally slightly wrong, it lands in a tiny bit where on my camera, you can end up being 0.5 of a degree off, which doesn't sound like much, but you know what I'm like with wonky photos.
Yeah, but you notice it on the horizon line, when you went, especially when you put it all in the timeline, and, usually, we put a grid on things.
Yeah.
So right, let's put a grid on to make sure we're absolutely bang level, bang plumb and everything else. And half a degree is quite noticeable once you put it out. Now, you never notice that in terms of, that's half a degree off. You just know something's not quite right.
I'm so weird when I'm looking at other photographers' work and reviewing it for them. Like, move that 1.2 degrees to the left. I was like, how do you know that? I'm like, well, you can clearly see. Like, you can clearly see it's 1.2 degrees wrong. But that's, I'm like straight lines. Yeah. I would literally be going, you'll be going, computer says it's right. And I'm like, I'm saying it's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm a nightmare.
I'm paying you wages, Rob. I'm right. Just do what I'm saying. Forget what the computer's telling you.
It looks wrong. We need to change it. So yeah, it's definitely the case. And with stills, and I'd like you to chime in on this as well in a minute with the, I've drank all the Coca-Cola. I'm really sorry.
It's okay.
You've got like one tiny thimble of it, and I've had like 3. I'm pepped up on sugar and caffeine. Maybe it's the original recipe in there, which could get interesting shortly.
Well, yeah, by the end of the podcast, you can be like,
so with stills, there's a couple of things when thinking about resolution, and I'm sure it's the same in video, but Rob, please correct me if I'm wrong. The lens resolves a certain amount of information. Now, you can kind of correlate that to megapixels. They don't actually measure it in megapixels, but you can go, this sensor records more detail than that lens is able to.
Yes.
That is a bad combination. That means you're getting lots of bad pixels, muddy pixels, mushy pixels, like not looking good pixels. You can have a lens that massively out-resolves a low megapixel camera. And sometimes because of that, you can actually punch in a bit more than you should be able to, because although you're losing resolution, and I don't understand this because it shouldn't work, and I've asked people out there to go, no, you definitely can't do that. I've done it. You can. It holds up fine. You can go beyond what the maximum crop should be on a particular resolution. If I put that Otis on a 10 megapixel camera, I can crop in more than I should be able to by the laws of physics. There's a lot of computer processing going on and all the rest of it. So there's the first part. The lenses have to be good. The lenses I use are Secor lenses, and they can just about resolve 100 megapixels. The 90mm, which is my go-to lens, is on its limits. I reckon it's probably really only resolving 90 of those 100. And then that's where you get a little bit of, you can't really go wider than f8.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't have that resolution. The 65 with the floating element, though, that is well over 100 megapixels of resolution. That is an insanely sharp lens. That will probably, I reckon, go up to 200 megapixels. And obviously, these are film lenses. They weren't designed for this. They just
happened to be
look
that
at the
good,
draw. Yeah. Also shooting a 6x7 centimeter lens, we're only getting the very center of it on a 645, which helps as well. So with stills, the benefits, they're kind of threefold. One is you can crop in for all those different things that they want, whatever it is you want. 2 is when Rob's doing his masking, tell them, Rob, now you're taking a sip of your drink. So
perfect timing there, Rob.
Brilliant. Tell them the difference between 5D or your 6D masking and the 100 megapixel masking.
Oh, it's night and day. You actually forget that you're working with the digital file with 100 megapixels, because you can just zoom into as much as you want, and at no point does it like when you're like, oh, there you go, there's the limit. Now I've got to come out back one more step back to do it. And you don't have a penchant for giving me like hairy fruit and stuff to mask up. And say, Rob, can we just change the background colour completely? I'm like, Cheers for that, Scott.
Yeah.
But with the especially like the high resolution files that we're working with last year or more, you just completely forget because you zoom in as far as I want to get the perfect path, the perfect mask, and it never crumbles. I've never reached the point really where you're going back 1-to-1 pixels again.
Yeah. You get a more accurate mask. Obviously, auto masking on any software is questionable.
I mean, again, it's a lottery. It depends on the image and and so on. But I still maintain that. Sorry, mate. The pen tool is still the one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially when it's the point where, like I say, you got complete background removals. And all sorts of other hairy fruits and various other bits and bobs. But the pen tool is the most accurate way of creating a path and a mask in Photoshop. It just is. There's no AI tool that does as good a job as you with a a graphics tablet and actually drawing your own path with a pencil.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely the way to go, and which is really makes a big difference in our work, both in the quality and in probably the enjoyment of doing it. And then I think the final thing is the third thing is that high resolution has a look even at low resolution. It captures more detail. All things being equal should be the same. If I take a 20 megapixel file on the same lens and then a 100 megapixel file on the same lens and export them both out at, 2 megapixels for Instagram, the 100 megapixel file's got more detail.
Yeah, because it's kind of, I mean, they call it like sort of super scaling, downsampling, whatever you want. And this kind of comes onto the difference in, say, the tech in some of the new Blackmagic cameras and the way their sensor works. And it's the same sort of thing because you're down, say, you've got 100 megapixels and you're delivering for social media, down to something like, 1 or 2 megapixels. You've got so much detail there already that even when you've shrunk it, you've started off with kind of 5 to 10 times more than you did with the 12 megapixel camera. So of course it looks better because you're squashing everything down to the same one, but this started with more detail because it's so much bigger.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And obviously it's diminishing returns.
Yeah.
It's not like 100 megapixels 5 times better than 20 when downscaled to 2.
No, of course.
But it's noticeable. I can always tell when a billboard was shot on a phase, despite the fact that's a 3 megapixel file. There's definitely like noticeable. Is it the same in video?
Yeah, I mean, it's if it's captured in, and again back to the resolution race, but I mean other things matter as well. But the same thing now with most cameras, the way they tend to work is if you're shooting in RAW, which a lot of people do these days, because that capability now has found itself in a lot more cameras. That if you want to crop, for example, in camera, you're actually cropping the sensor. You're no longer using the full sensor readout to create that 4K file from your 6K camera.
Yeah,
you're using the 4K bit of the sensor,
and this really confused me at first. So I'm just going to turn my resolution down to 4K, and it's like these little shutters come out, go ka-chunk, gone.
Yeah, and you're like, well, what's happened? It's because that's the way RAW works or has previously worked. Because again, most sensors are the CMOS sensors are RGB, which is obviously red, green, blue. Now, what Blackmagic have done with their new sensor, the pixel array is RGBW, the pop to white pixel in there. So basically, the way the grid's arranged, you can take that 12 or 17K image, and when it downsamples, it still reads from the full sensor readout because it's got enough pixels in all the right places to do it. And that's awesome.
Yeah, that's what makes the big difference, isn't it, when you're delivering to clients as well, when they can see it's still looking...
Well, importantly, you haven't got to keep using wider lenses, which change the look of everything to get the same framing that you have because you've cropped in on the sensor.
Yeah, actually, good point. This is one of the big misunderstandings. People are like, well, I used a 50mm lens on my crop sensor stills camera, so it looked like an 85mm lens on a full frame. It doesn't. What you're getting is the crop of the... Oh, it's about an 80, actually. A crop of an 80, but you're getting the distortion of 50.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. And also you've got the distance you're standing changes, which changes the perspective as well. So
and when you transpose that to video, it's even more of a difference. Not only are those things all true, but now when things are moving, the speed the background moves at relative to the subjects, and all these things are completely different from, even though the subject's the same size in the frame, and et cetera, et cetera. But you'll say, hang on, all of a sudden the background's rushing by on this focal length, but now on this other one, it seems to be really slow, even though the subject's walking at the same speed with the same framing, same height, everything else around it is different.
And this is my beef with cropping. It's like this 18mm lens, like I've said, it's designed to look like an 18mm lens. Now that 18mm lens on a crop sensor body, so it's given us what, 20mm field of view.
Give or take, yeah.
It's not a massive push for it. It still kind of looks right, but it's just certain things look right to the human eye, and a 50mm lens on a 35mm camera looks right. A 50mm lens on a crop sensor camera doesn't look right. It's a different look.
Yeah, you're better off with like a 35 or something, but
I think so. And it's something that really bothers me. And I can, especially with portraits, like if you want to take a beautiful portrait of someone, the bigger the sensor, the better it looks. Like obviously there's the inconvenience of using 8x10, but it does look better. Having a whopping big lens at that distance looks better than having a 50mm, like we'll go like a 130mm lens on an 8x10 for head and shoulders, or a 50mm lens on a crop sensor. That 180mm lens, yes, they've both got the same framing, and I'm slightly guessing this 8x10 lens name, so apologies if it's wrong. Yes, they've got the same framing, but they're not the same shot.
No.
Not even close.
And then this also comes back to the resolution race, where everybody forgot that the most important thing was the size of the sensor.
I know. It's
I remember when like Nokia released that like 50 odd megapixel Windows phone or whatever.
I remember that.
48 megapixels, I think it was. And they were like, well, how big's the sensor? It's like still teeny tiny, still smaller than equivalent sensors from other brands in phones at the time. And this is going like, well, but the same rules apply. They got lost in the megapixel race because that's all, or most of the public understood that more pixels is better, right? Well, no, less pixels is better. Sony, for example, the reason they did so well with the A7S series is because they understood from day one that this was better. So they had the A7 series, and I think 4 or 5 now, which was like, you know, again, higher resolution, 48 megapixel camera. But for the video centric guys, the A7S, they made it 12 megapixel because that was perfect 4K delivery on what's a full frame sensor. So all the photo sites were bigger, and in low light, that thing was an absolute monster.
Oh God, I mean, like in low light, high megapixels, it's not as bad nowadays because the computers got better, and also so there's a software to edit them. But my 5DSR, 50 megapixels, if it goes above 800 ISO, it is unusable.
Yeah.
On the flip side, my GFX, you can bang that ISO all the way up to high heaven and it's fine.
Yeah.
But it's a newer processor.
And again, much bigger sensor.
Not much. It's about double the. Well, it is bigger, yeah. It's bigger, but it's not 645. It's not full frame.
No, it's greater than full frame. I believe it's that right, for them.
It's not bigger than medium. It's not as big as medium format. So medium format full frame is 645. That's baby medium format. There are a couple of sensors that are nearly that big. They're not quite that big. Nearly that big.
Yeah.
And the GFX is not nearly that big. It's halfway between that and a 35mm camera.
Yeah.
So it's bigger, but not really. But it's cheaper.
Because you know, again, if you look at the pixel count compared to your Canon, it's not that much different on the grand scheme of things. But because the sensor is so much bigger, you can definitely notice the difference in the files.
Oh God, yeah. There's a definite difference. Now, what I'm gonna do here is go shopping for a high resolution camera.
Let's go shopping again.
I am recording screen, brilliant. So I've just gone into MPB on a complete tangent, just gone cheapest to most expensive first. This is my first camera that I bought, 50D, 39 quid.
I remember using that when I was second shooting with you at a wedding.
Yeah.
And the shutter on that is the loudest thing.
It's not quiet.
It was like a shotgun going off.
So this camera currently is in my mum's house, and she uses it still to this day for her e-commerce work. Still to this day, it's running. I bought it, I think, for 500 quid and get 39 quid today. I shot a Specsavers advert on it.
I mean, it's just pennies. I mean, 39 quid for that.
That's nuts. But that's not what we're looking for. It's a great camera. But I'm classing high resolution as over 50 megapixels.
Yeah.
I think below that, it's not low resolution, but it's not high. Oh, that's interesting. So the cheapest you can get is literally the 5DS and 5DSR that I have. If you're a studio photographer, would highly recommend. What's this, Rob? Sigma FPL. That's interesting.
That's Sigma's little full frame camera.
I've never heard of this. Is it good?
I mean, I've never used one personally, but I've known people that have used them and do rate them.
That'd be great in the back of a Cambo.
It's tiny.
It is tiny. Put it on the back of a technical camera. Probably mains power it. It's got no excess there. That's quite a cool actual design. 50 megapixels. Just so everyone knows, this is just the body. There's no digital back there.
Yeah.
That is not going to get you far. GFX 100, I think this is going to be a cool classic in the future. They're never going to make one design like this again because for whatever reason, it didn't do as well as I think as they hoped. But I do like this design. It's the same sensor as in my camera.
Yeah.
But it's a more shooting on location body.
Yeah, I mean, it always looks like the 1 series Canon where it looks like it's got the battery grip built in.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it has. Yeah. It wouldn't fit on my Cambo. I nearly got one. It has a better viewfinder, and also this is what I really wanted. It has a viewfinder where you can articulate it. So when you're at weird angles, just twist the top viewfinder around and you're good to go. So I'm going to scan past the Sonys because their naming structure confuses me. Do you know what it means? A7R IVA, A7CR.
Oh, not a clue, honestly.
No, but they're options. Panasonic Lumix. This is something I need to look into. People keep telling me I should be trying Panasonic cameras. Do you know anything about them?
I've used one quite recently actually. In the S1. It's like I'm not a fan.
What did you not like about it?
Well, the screen, the way it handles, the codecs, it wasn't for me. I mean, again, this was in context on a video shoot, so it handles exactly like a very complicated stills camera does. So it wasn't.
Yeah, not the right tool for
the job. But again, apparently, really good sensor, full frame.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the camera I'm using now, the GFX 100S, 3,200. Pretty good price.
Again, cheaper than the 5 series Canon.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant image quality. Frustrating menu system. I like it. SL3 is something I've always wanted. I have no way to justify it. Now we're getting into serious money. This is a camera I'm interested in. This is the Fujifilm GFX RF. So it's like a rangefinder styled. Obviously, I have no use for this whatsoever. I can't even imagine how I justify spending this much money on this particular camera in my business. But for personal use, absolutely.
You would like to own one?
I would very much like to. It's got like it's not a rangefinder. Is it a rangefinder? I need to look into this. It's beautiful, whatever it is. I don't believe it has a rangefinder because it looks like it's a digital viewfinder.
So here's the thing, and I don't know how you feel about this statement. If you were to buy that for what, $4,500?
Yeah.
Would you have buyer's remorse thinking I should have just paid a bit extra money and got the Leica?
Yeah, probably. I'd say there's a high chance. M11P Black. I'd love to own a Leica. I've nearly bought one so many times. I've had them in the shopping basket, and then I've just done that. Don't be stupid. Like, by the time you bought a lens, it's like 10 grand in.
Yeah.
And then what? Put it in my £2,000 car. Although I wouldn't spend 10 grand on a car either, so it's not really a good comparison. But like, I don't need a £10,000 walk around camera.
And commercially, it doesn't give you what your Fuji does.
Oh, I'd never be able to use them commercially. They don't offer any of the things that I need. But as a personal camera, I'd love it. I could use this one here, the S3 commercially.
Yeah.
A few people I know do. Beautiful cameras, beautiful lenses. 8.5 grand. It's a big chunk of change when I spent
it's still a lot of cash.
But you're getting into high resolution here for under £1,000. For £2,000, you've got options, and up to £3,000, you've got great options in there. There's like a decent chunk of things you could go for. And I'd say I'd highly recommend the 5DS system. I think it did wonders for my work. I think the difference, but I'd say going from a 5D Mark II to a 5DS it's probably the same jump as going from a 5DS to a Fuji.
I'd argue that's a bigger jump.
Do you reckon?
Yeah. Because there was a whole bunch of the look was. Here's the thing: the look between the 5DS and the 5D Mark II was the same. You just had more resolution to punch in.
Yeah, it wasn't vastly different.
Now the look from the 5DS to the Fuji, very different.
Yeah, that is true. It was a very different looking sort of thing, wasn't it? It was,
because again, you got the greater bit depth and all these other things bolted on top of the resolution increase.
Yes, yeah, I do enjoy. Yeah, the Fuji is just, in terms of high resolution studio work, it is a monster. I don't think it's a better bang for buck than the 5DSR just because you can get it for under £1,000.
Yep.
But if you've got more than £1,000, it's the way to go. If you've got more than £3,000 to spend. You need a lot more than £3,000 to go anywhere else, really, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, that's the ceiling. I mean, you're into 10Gs plus after that.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know. I can't justify 10 grand on a camera, like that. Not because the cash isn't there, but it's because I know in 5 years' time when I'm done with it, it'll be worth $2,000. And someone's going to go to me, yeah, but it paid for itself. I'm not making any less money by using a GFX.
No, absolutely not. And if you need something else, you just rent it.
I'd also say I'm not making any more money with a GFX than I did with a 5DSR, but I'd ragged my 5DSRs and they were due replacing. And I was given some other kit for free, so money was freed up and I splurged a bit.
It just made sense.
I do like it now. Now I've got it. I do prefer those files. I do think they're good. Same with the Blackmagic. This is 6K Blackmagic. I think it's brilliant for what I do.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I mean, I was an early adopter. I love these things. I mean, I've been looking at something that that Pixie's 12K makes so much sense for me. You don't do it, Rob.
How much is it?
I think it's about $4.5, $5,000. It's not that much more than the 6K Pixies. I think, to be honest, anyone that bought that 6K Pixies is now having buyer's remorse.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
Because it was basically the cinema camera full frame in a different body, whereas now this is packed in the RGBW sensor from the Ursa into the Pixie size body. Now all of a sudden this makes complete sense. So you've got a 12K camera that will shoot fully super scaling at 4K all day long for manageable files and all the rest of it, and you've still got all the advantages of the RGBW as well. It's like, yes, just take my money.
Yeah, but I'd need a new computer to run those, wouldn't I?
Yeah,
It's not going on my Mac.
The 4K files would be much the same as ones that come out of the pocket.
Yeah, that's true.
It's only if you ever wanted, I mean, and as would be the case if you're on set for a client shooting with that, you would be shooting at 12K, because why would you not be?
I know, and then I'd cry afterwards.
Yeah, and then you're into like a absolute monster of a water cooled thing. Even though the
start from even though
the Blackmagic RAW is a really, really computer friendly codec. There's a limit. I mean, you can see the difference between the 4K and the 6K. It's noticeably more difficult to process. So you can imagine basically quadrupling that, and that's what you'd be with the 12K. You need an absolute monster, and you'd be like living your life generating proxies. So that's a whole other thing. I think the way I'm probably going to go is I think it's about time that I just got the wallet out a little bit and bought like maybe 1 or 2 anamorphic lenses, which I don't have. So I'm thinking that's where I'm probably going to end up going.
What focal length do you go with?
Well, that's the thing, because obviously with anamorphic's a tricky one, because you've got a couple of things to consider. It's the squeeze and de-squeeze factor sort of thing. So like
actually, before you say that, explain to people, because a lot of still stockers won't know what these are. What is an anamorphic lens?
Right, so an anamorphic lens basically doesn't use spherical elements. It basically was a way that they invented way back when we were shooting on film, and film was shot at 4:3 as a format. They were trying to pack the most on while still having that kind of widescreen look, because back in the day when television started becoming a thing, I mean, I'm not quite that old, but and I'm getting there. The way the sell to pull people back into the cinemas was shot in CinemaScope and super wide, and that widescreen look you just couldn't get at home on your television. So that was how they were sort of pulling the audiences. So some bright spot came up with the design of the anamorphic, where it would fill the 4:3 film frame, but to make it look right, you then had to de-squeeze it, because everyone looked like a cone head. Everything was stretched. So what it did is you pushed everything down, which obviously made the thing proportionally wider. But now this did some really, really interesting things. There was 2 characteristics of an anamorphic lens that you just do not get with spherical lenses. One is, J.J. Abrams sticks them in willy and indeed nilly, but the horizontal lens flares that you see, that's a characteristic of an anamorphic lens. So that look that's been done to death digitally now. But that was, again, a characteristic of an anamorphic lens. You get those nice, completely horizontal lens flares. And the other thing is what happens to the background bokeh is it's no longer spherical or hexagonal or whatever. Now it's elliptical. And again, you look at things and you see like the street lamp stretch, you're right, but the person in the front of the frame in focus, everything looks completely proportionally correct.
Yeah.
And it's just got that look, that anamorphic look you just can't fake. And people have tried, and there's all sorts of things with fishing wire and things you stick in front and behind the lenses and other things, but there's something original about them. Now, and what we mean by the squeeze factor, getting back to this, because you've got typically 3 common types. I'm sure there's many, many more, because it's a whole industry of itself. But you've got the 1.3 squeeze, which means that you have to basically put a 30% on it to de-squeeze it. You've then got the 1.6 times, and then the big boy, the 2 times, which gives you a super wide look. So you got to consider when you're purchasing the lens, what happens to your field of view once you've de-squeezed it, because you think, I bought the 24mm for argument's sake, and now it looks the widest thing you've ever seen in the world once you've actually de-squeezed it, if it was a 2 times lens. So you have to kind of think of all these, and I think again it's a 1 point, because you kind of shoot or what they call open gate. That's kind of the equivalent now and again on certain cameras where the sensor itself is actually 4:3. It's not a 16:9 sensor anymore. So if you're shooting open gate, and again that those Panasonics will allow you to do that. That's one of the nice things about that. So you can take your 1.3, shoot it on an open gate, and now all of a sudden that becomes a perfect 16:9 frame.
Right.
Your 1.6 on it will actually now become your 235:1. What we call a standard cinemascope, I guess, and then the 2 times just gives you that crazy wide look where almost half the screen is black bars.
Yeah.
So you got to think your focal length. You've got to now start thinking of multiplying that by the squeeze factor to give you what the field of view would be, but while still having all the compression and distortion characteristics of the inherent value of what that lens is. So it's a whole.
It's quite a chaotic choice. Then it's not as simple as going, "Oh, chuck us a 24."
Yeah, it's not quite that simple. But I think that's something I'd like to do, just for my own amusement. And I've not bought anything fun for a while, and it's something I would actually use a lot.
Sorry, I was holding that cough in. So yeah, it's quite an interesting. Would you? Not could you? I'm sure you could. Would you ever use one on a stills camera?
You could, if you want that look, as I say, because the elliptical backgrounds, the lens flare, that's just characteristics of what the lens does. If you want that look, so again, if you were a photographer inspired by movies, you could be tempted to go buy an anamorphic. Now, issues with them is that there aren't that many that actually will do autofocus. They're renowned for being a bit softer because, again, in the film world, it doesn't matter. You're not, chasing, complete sharpness and everything else.
True.
So again, it's that softer look is more filmic because, again, obviously these date back to the film days. That's the whole reason they got invented in the first place. So, it depends on what you're looking for, but I mean, you absolutely can use them for stills as long as you understand that there may be issues where you have to manually focus everything and so on.
Yeah, it might. You could do some cool stuff in the studio, I reckon, with like backlighting them and
yeah,
maybe that's something we need to play with. Here's a tidbit for all of you. In filming world, when you're changing lenses, it's called swinging a lens.
Yeah, you know why that is, right?
Yeah, because the old, I don't know, we call them the bayonet thing where you swing the lenses around on it.
Yeah, well, it's because you'll notice when people make sets of lenses, at least for professional use, like Arri Master Primes and various other bits and bobs, they're all identical.
Yeah.
In terms of the size, because obviously most cinematographers have the matte box, which you swing open, swap the lens out, pop the new one on, everything just fits back exactly how it was before.
And those old ones, they used to have them on a turret.
Yes.
And you could literally like rotate this thing round.
Yeah, but these things weighed like 80 kilos.
Yeah, they were not lightweight, are they?
There's the reason older films look the way they did is because no one could lift the camera.
I know.
So the only way to move it about was either leave it static or put it on a huge dolly track that literally was almost like pulling a steam train.
I know. Do you know what though? I do really miss the long static shots in movies. I think they are massively underutilized today. I just feel that I don't want to get motion sickness watching dolly like gimbal shots running through, and so yeah, of course it works sometimes, but I just don't think every shot needs movement.
No, I mean, and especially in action films, a lot of that's done to hide the fact that the star can't actually fight.
Yeah.
So they do lots of quick cuts and blurs. I mean, that's been taken from the sublime to the ridiculous, and then you got movies then the John Wicks of the world now coming back, going back to oneers again. Because that's what was cool. Like back in the Hong Kong days when you had like Jackie Chan and the Jackie Chan stunt team, like world renowned as like the best at what they do. And they could do, a minute and a half take in one because they were just that good.
Yeah.
And when you're asking like a Hollywood actor with the best will in the world to do what, Lifetime trained stuntmen are doing, it's not a reasonable ask, and it's not possible. So you have to kind of consider that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Times are changing, but not always for the better. But also, as many people think they're always changing for the worst, definitely not always for the worst.
Not always, no.
Like, we just move slowly. We take a few steps forwards, a couple of steps backwards. We end up somewhere.
Well, as I say, it's the thing of the pendulum.
Yeah.
Sometimes it moves too far, and then it comes back to kilter, and you think, okay, things aren't so bad after all.
Yeah. So speaking of swinging the pendulum, we'd better. We're getting towards 9:20. We better wrap this bad boy up because we're going to offload this. I'm back in at 5 a.m. And
yeah, I've got a meeting at 6 a.m.
Yeah, we better get cracking. Right then. Cheers, guys. See you later.
Ciao for now.